Hello, class. Now, last lesson we actually talked about the problem we had with increasing population, okay, and the amount of waste that is being increased, okay, due to a lot of people consuming things and using things, and the effect it has on the animals and biodiversity. Now, I remember telling you that that was the part one, okay. Now, what we did last lesson was actually to cover everything that you needed to know for that particular topic, okay. And we also talked about how it's going to affect the animals in the seas and how the fertilizers being used actually is really, really bad as well for the sea biodiversity. Okay. Now, what we're doing today is actually looking at land use and deforestation. Okay. And before we continue, like we always do, I want to make sure you've got all your equipment with you. Okay. You've got your pen, you've got your pencil, you've got your ruler. So I need you to pause the video right now. Okay. And make sure all those equipment are with you, including your green pen. Okay, remember our green pen is very important, okay, for reflective learning and making sure we carry out responsive feedback and make corrections to our work. So pause the video and get those equipment. Okay, can we continue? Brilliant. So like I said, we are learning, what we're doing today is looking at land use and deforestation. Okay, and our learning objective is to understand how deforestation and destruction of peat bugs can affect biodiversity. I know you probably don't know what peat bugs are. Some of you do know it, some of you do not know it, but we're going to cover it in further detail, okay? And a bit of an interesting story as well that you're going to listen to, okay? But like we always do, I need you to pause the video and actually write down the learning objective. It's very important that you write this down. So pause the video and do that. Okay, are you all done? Brilliant. Now, I also need you now to actually answer our retrieval question. These are questions based on what we did last lesson, and I believe you're capable enough to actually answer these questions. Answer the questions, okay? These are 4 questions. I'll give us 5 minutes to answer because of the challenge question. Take your time to do it, okay? And then, after doing that, we're going to use our green pen to mark our work and also make our corrections, which is, like I said, our responsive feedback. So pause the video, take 5 minutes, answer the questions. All right. I believe all the questions has been answered. Brilliant. So the first question is asking us, why is pollution bad for biodiversity? Okay. And the reason why is because remember from last lesson, we talked about how pollution leads to reduction in biodiversity by eradicating plant and animal species. And that's not what we want. Okay. So pollution reduces biodiversity by eradicating plant and animal species. Okay. Brilliant. And the second question is asking, what is an indicator species? Now, these are species that can actually help us to tell how polluted an area is. I remember in the last 2 lessons I spoke to you about my area of university when we got some fungi, and that actually helps us determine whether that area is polluted or less polluted. Okay, so indicator species are species that allows us to tells you how polluted an area is. All right, the next question is asking you, what is an advantage of a plant fertilizer? And as a farmer, you should know, or as farmers use it, you should know that it actually helps increase crop yield, faster growth of crops, okay? But then the next question is asking, why do you think there's a disadvantage? What is the disadvantage of plant fertilizer? And that is caused by what we call eutrophication, which is caused by fertilizer running off, because what happens now is it actually reduces soil fertility and only works for a short-term benefit. And again, fertilizers are really, really expensive. If you do not know this now, please write this down, okay? Write it down. And also the challenge question is asking us, why is biodiversity so important? The reason why it's important is that species don't become entirely dependent on another species for their survival. I remember talking about this in the last lesson. So how many of us got full marks? I believe you got close to at least 4 marks or full marks. But well done to every one of you. But what is important is make sure you pause the video and make those corrections. All right, like I said, we are looking at land use and deforestation. Okay, now the learning outcome is hopefully by the end of today, you should be able to describe how humans reduce the amount of land available for other animals and plants. We can also hopefully we can be able to describe what deforestation is and why it has occurred in tropical areas, and we can also explain the consequences of deforestation, and hopefully lastly we can explain the consequences of peat bogs and destructions. Now, the question now is, what do you think about this picture? Okay, look at that picture. What do you think? Where do you think this is? When do you think this is? How do you think this is? And why? So pause the video and take your time to think about it. All right. I mean, from my perspective, I could say the fact that it's a tropical area, it's got a lot of trees, and it looks like a lot of the trees have been torn down, okay, for use. And now, the question now is, what do humans use land for? Okay. Now we could say, yo, we use land for farming and cropping, which is one of the most obvious answers. Actually, for housing as well. Last lesson we talked about the increase in population, and these days a lot of parks are being turned into houses as well. So they use land for housing, for dumping waste as well, because those wastes are not going to go anywhere. So dumping waste, humans have used it for quarrying, okay, by getting mineral resources, farming, animals as well, okay, building offices and houses. Okay, now this and the interesting thing is the way we use land has actually changed over the years, and I believe you can all agree with me, because long time ago people used land for farming, and now things are changing. Things are becoming very, very industrial, and this has literally caused a problem on our ecosystem. Okay, now this is very, very important, because there are two types of damaging land use that we're going to learn about. Okay, this one is called peat burning and deforestation. Two main things we're going to learn about. Okay, so what is peat bogs? Okay, now that is a strange place. Okay, now wetlands are basically dead plant materials, usually moss, partially decomposed over years and years. Okay, now these pits are very damp, acidic, and rich in carbon, so we can call them a carbon store. So they store up the carbon. All right, now I remember I thought I was going to tell you a story. Okay, now there was somebody they found called the Twilight Man. Okay, now he was found in a pit bog in Denmark in 1950 when people were digging up pits. All right, now he lived in 4000 BC. All right, and his body was well preserved, that we were able to investigate the cause of his death: murder, sacrifice, or punishment. Okay, his body was preserved in a pit. Remember, the pit is like a carbon store, it stores up the carbon. All right, now peat is always used in two ways. All right, one, well, back then really, burned as it's cheap fuel, okay, and also added to compost used by gardeners. Okay, now what do you think this will cause? Okay, by burning the peat and also used as a compost. Now, it's very important that we remember that we said peat is very rich in carbon. So burning releases carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. And we've learned about the global warming and the problem of having carbon dioxide. And I'm sure when you learned in year 9 about space, you learned about the fact that increase in carbon dioxide causes the increase in temperature, all right, in our atmosphere. And that is not exactly what we want. Okay, now the removal of peat causes destruction of habitats for plants and animals, reducing biodiversity. So we don't want it to be removed, we want it to be there. Okay, now deforestation. I want you to pause the video and write down what you think deforestation is. Okay, write your definition of it. Now the clue is from the word forestation, okay, and the word de. All right, deforestation. The word deforestation is basically the removal of large areas of trees to provide land for farming or building. just as what we've seen earlier on. Okay, now your opinion. Okay, deforestation is sometimes okay, is it? I remember if you look at your learning session, your knowledge organizer, I've asked you to actually write down a comparison about this topic, this word. Deforestation is sometimes okay. Do you agree or do you disagree? Obviously, think about it. What is your opinion? Now, let's have a look at this, okay? Now, look at this particular map, all right? The question is asking what pattern can you spot when you look at the map, okay? Which regions of what are most affected by deforestation? Let's have a look together. Now we can look at we can look at different areas. Look at Nigeria, for example, is in red. It's mostly affected. Look at Congo, look at Brazil. All right, they are affected by deforestation, which is quite interesting. Now, this link is actually 2 YouTube videos. I'll show you the Amazon deforestation and the Amazon the lungs of our planet. Take your time to watch the video to understand the extent of the problem of this deforestation. All right. Now, the question is, can deforestation be justified? All right. Now, what I would like you to do is actually to write down whether I need you to actually write down your opinion on this. Do you think deforestation can be justified? Or I think about the increase in population. Do you think we need to have more people, create more lands? Okay. Or are there other things we can do? And what are the consequences of this deforestation? So I need you to do that yourself. Pause the video and write it down and actually share with we teachers about your opinions and thoughts on deforestation. It'll be interesting to hear your thoughts. Okay. And do you think your opinions have changed? Do you agree that deforestation is sometimes okay or not? Again, I would like you to share your opinion with us on this topic. Now these are the key ideas, okay? Now, many problems with deforestation, they can be linked to what we call the carbon cycle, okay? So, increase in carbon dioxide at our atmosphere due to burning, due to decay, less carbon dioxide is taken in and locked up by trees, equal to less photosynthesis, meaning, well, what happens to our oxygen? Is there going to be more oxygen or less oxygen? Well, that is a question for you to answer. Now, we've got some exam questions as well. I would like you to also answer. Take your time to answer these questions. These questions are going to help you. And hopefully, you've learned quite a lot from this topic. All right. Again, make sure you ask questions. Okay. Email us if you do not understand anything. All right. And okay. And we're going to see you in the next topic. See you later.